All right, good morning, everyone. It is 11:30, which is our meeting start time. We're still waiting for a few members of the committee to show up. So while we wait for quorum, I'm going to go ahead and go through our preamble. So this is the October 17th Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee meeting. The virtual meeting regulations and procedures. The meeting shall be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the start of any presentation. The recused committee member will then leave the meeting for the duration of the case discussion. The chair will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call of the committee. The administrator will introduce the first project. The meeting will then be turned over to the applicant to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the committee. Once the presentation is concluded, the administrator will provide background information, if applicable, and will read any received comments. The committee will then begin deliberations and project review. Please use the raise hand feature if you'd like to speak. After deliberations and review concludes, the committee will render its recommendation and/or motion. The applicant may leave the meeting after the project review is complete. All projects will follow the same format until all projects are heard by the committee. Once all projects are heard, the chair will call for any committee or administrator reports. After all reports have been heard, the chair will adjourn the meeting. Regarding community comments, any and all community members may provide their written comments, thoughts, or questions regarding projects presented to the committee. Community members may also telephone their comments or questions to the committee administrator. All comments, thoughts, or questions must be submitted to the committee administrator no later than 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Public comment received after the deadline will not be heard by the committee. Public comment will be collected by Landmark staff and sent to the committee members for review prior to the scheduled meeting. Landmark staff will also summarize any received comments during the meeting. The applicant of the project is under no obligation to answer any of the community questions. Community members are invited to attend the Design Review Advisory Committee meetings, but there will be no open public comment period. As a reminder, all projects are being reviewed using the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and are being considered for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. All projects are considered on a case-by-case basis, and the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee makes recommendations to the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Recommendations are not final actions. Depending on the scope of the project, submissions may be approved administratively or will need to be reviewed by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. Projects will be scheduled at the next available commission meeting after an action is taken. So with that, let's see. Trying to see if we have quorum here. It appears we do have quorum, and I don't see Nia here. So Phil, do you mind stepping in as chair?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, if you want to call to order and ask for a roll call, I can go through all that.
All right. Calling the October 17th Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee to order. Dan, could you call roll?
Sure. Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. Flaherty?
Here.
Mr. Frondorf? Ms. Lamb?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Persons? Mr. Talley?
Here.
Mr. Trevisano? And Ms. Marinucci. Right, Mr. Chairman, it does appear we have quorum, so we can move through our certificates of appropriateness reviews, starting with case.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry for being late.
Oh, okay, is that
Alex?
Okay, got it. Thank you. So yeah, we'll move to case HOC 24-16 at West 32nd and Franklin Boulevard. You guys saw this as a schematic. concept review back in May, so they made some changes and are here for a final review now. So I will hand it over to the applicants, and just let me know when you want me to advance through the slides, please.
Sure. Hi, this is Brad Nosen. I'm with the Property Advisors Group. We are doing a joint venture on this project, as well as a historic renovation next door to this with the Dow Group. I'm here with our designer, Mike O'Neill. We actually just realized that we had sent you this full presentation with some renderings that were inaccurate, and I can describe those inaccuracies. I did forward the updated presentation to Jessica like 5 minutes ago, so you may be looking at a slightly outdated renderings, but I can explain to you what Mike and I can explain to you what those are. So this is the red shed. We spoke with you guys a while ago, and then summer got busy, and we're back here. The next slide, please. Is there a... Okay, thank you. So obviously this is in Ohio City, West 32nd, just south of Franklin. Next slide. This is, as we're zooming in here, you can see more of the context for the area. It's across from the park there. Next slide, please. Again, further zoomed in. Next slide, just south of Franklin. Another vicinity map. Next slide. Another site context plan. We're just trying to follow you guys' guidelines and provide you everything. Here's the project site. You can see this is about a 2,200 square foot building. It was formerly used as a gymnasium when this was an old YWCA. It's never had any sort of residential use in it. It is inexplicably zoned as 2-family, and our eventual goal is to get this rezoned as a just general retail. Next slide, please. Some existing site plans. You can see to the north, you have the Franklin Yard project, which is the mansion, which if you've been by there is currently being renovated. And then you have the old dormitory building is what we're calling it, which is also under renovation. You have plenty of green space, which will be accessible for tenants, and theoretically there may be people who kind of wander their way into that space as well. And then the red shed is just south of the mansion there, and we hope that's we'd like to get this rezoned as a some sort of general retail, so it's an amenity not only for the tenants there and across the street, but also for people in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is the existing condition of what we call the red shed. Again, about 2,200 square feet, metal panels, red metal panels. I'm talking with our construction group. They are looking at ways to potentially save and restore those red metal panels. But as you can see, they're pretty rough, especially on the north side there. So if we have to replace them, they would be replaced with a very similar red metal panel material. I'm using a black panel material on a project in Tremont, so I don't think this should be a difficult replacement. Next slide, please. So, just some interior photos of the existing conditions. It's really just kind of a big warehouse. You've got these kind of cool cross beams that we'd like to save. If should a tenant, want to keep those in there for the aesthetic, and I think it would be a cool look. Next slide, please. So I'll let Mike take this over, but basically these are revisions based on your feedback and feedback from Landmarks. I believe we received, conditional approval on when we went through the conceptual schematic plan here. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so a few things were brought up last time that we tried to address here. We also started, exploring what types of tenants might be in here and looking at some hypothetical floor plans. And in doing so, we realized we kind of had to figure out where the second exit was going to be. And also, if we're going to provide a front door here, it's pretty high up, so we need an ADA entrance. And we think the best place for that is in the rear, just because there's no room for a ramp on the front of the building without doing some sort of major modification. So we incorporated that. We're highlighting that here, and also, you know, starting to get into like where trash will be, where the AC unit might be. And then we modified that front porch to be accessible from the sidewalk and from the drive lane, the existing drive lane. We also wanted to just highlight that we removed the skylight that faces the closest neighbor to the south, and that we are ensuring that there will be privacy glass. That, you know, there were most of the comments in the last round were surrounding privacy, especially considering, you know, there's a neighbor about 10 to 12 feet just to the south. So we're just doing everything we can to ensure that there's a nice division for sound and privacy there.
And the other thing is there was a note, I believe it was from Whitney last time, about having privacy on the porch, on the south side of the porch. The renderings you'll see here, and I apologize, we have the wrong renderings attached, and I forwarded it to Jessica if you guys want to see the updated one, but the renderings show a closed off wall on the porch, not an open wall, and then, you know, we've got the skylight there, but the skylight would go away. So go ahead, Mike, sorry.
All right, everybody, I apologize. We had some technical issues on our end. If I can get this back in.
Back, I don't know if Mike is.
I'm back. Yeah, something just happened with my meeting.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, it closed on us. So
Yeah, no.
let me get it back, and you can pick up where you left off.
We'll wait for.
Just wondering why I stopped talking so abruptly. All right, can you guys see it now? Is it back?
Yep.
Back up. Okay. Just continue like nothing ever happened.
All right, so this is the existing condition. We have this drive lane and then this kind of awkward stair situation right in front that's not really usable. But that's kind of the area we see as being converted into this usable porch that you enter out onto at level with the floor on the interior. It's a few feet above the sidewalk. So we'd like to introduce a stair that you can get to right from the sidewalk there, because that's, you know, we see that as being the main entrance for whoever, whichever tenant goes into this space. So it is tight. We're just going to have to, you know, go back and forth until we get something that works from like a code standpoint and a comfort standpoint.
And this was based on the feedback from your group, your committee, and Landmarks, is that they'd like to see some sort of stair leading to the sidewalk. So we've got to figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah, if you'll recall in the last round, we had the main entrance on the north side of the building, so you would walk up the drive lane and enter where the current front door or the current side entrance to the building is. So. And next slide.
So this is the existing. Yep.
So in the proposed, we're closing off that side entrance and moving it to the rear, just because that forms a better sort of use corridor for an interior layout. And then the primary entrance will be right on 32nd Street on this porch. We are introducing a garage door. We'll have to open that up. Right now they're just boarded up windows. I'm not quite sure of the condition of those windows, but most of the windows do seem to be in pretty good shape. So, well, we may not be able to save the metal panels. It seems like we may be able to save the old windows,
or at least they'll be replaced as they exist. Next slide.
So these are the existing elevations. You can see it's a very kind of tidy design for the original building. It's nice and modular. These panels are all the same size. The windows are all the same size. fairly standardized. The front porch as it is not usable. I'm not quite sure how it was used in the past. It's kind of crumbling and due for a makeover.
Next slide, please.
So what we're looking at doing is extending the roof line to create this patio and create kind of a strong covered sense of enclosure off the front of the building. And then pulling the signage off the street, you know, setting it back onto the drive lane to be a little more discreet and just blend in with the neighborhood a little bit more. We're looking at possible skylights on the north side. We're gonna no longer look at one on the south side, and then you know, a nice railing on the front of the porch and some stool counter height seating.
Next slide, please.
This is just showing where we would have be introducing new lighting. So there would be some low profile exterior wall washing sconces along the pedestrian route to the rear of the building. Some wall mounted signage just set in near the stair. And then just kind of also touching on what type of furniture we imagine in the space, and just to get a sense of how, you know, bright this might be in the evening. We're not looking at this being a late night establishment, so this would be, you know, hypothetically very low impact on the neighborhood as far as noise.
And just a reminder that south, we have renderings which we can re-forward to you guys, which shows the south wall of the front porch there is completely blocked off, is enclosed. The renderings you will see will show kind of a louver system right now, but we have another one. So, you know, please take our word for it that we just sent you the wrong one. I apologize. Next slide, please.
This is just touching on the our intentions for restoration and preservation. So it is kind of a unique old building. Obviously, we want to preserve as much of the character as we can. There may be some code issues we run into with, you know, fire protection systems. If this becomes, you know, what is categorized as far as assembly groups and uses on the inside. But we would love to preserve these very kind of novel trusses on the inside. And then also, if we can't preserve the exterior paneling, we'd like to kind of mimic it. It's a very standardized module, so I think we could find someone local or someone to make that for a reasonable price to restore it. And then the windows, same deal. If we can preserve them, we can, but otherwise we'll try to preserve the character of them.
Next slide, please.
Right, so these are the updated renderings. They do still show that opening off to the neighbor side of the porch that should be closed off. But other than that, basically from the last time, what we've changed is there's no longer a door on the north facade next to the row of windows you see here. And there is this new staircase that opens up to the drive lane.
Next slide, please. Just another view. Next slide, please. We'll just kind of flip through some different views here. This could be interior view. If it was a coffee shop, perhaps it could look like this. Who knows? Next slide, please. Next slide. And that's it. But yeah, I think we've attempted to take into account, though the renderings, you know, show that one opening, but and the skylight. But you know, as noted by Mike, you know, we've removed the skylight on the south side. We have privacy windows. We're proposing privacy windows, and we are proposing to close the right there on the porch there. And I have those renderings if your organization would like to, committee would like to take a look on at those as well. So that's what we have. So we say we're going for, I guess, a final recommendation from you guys so we can move on to landmarks and then ultimately Board of Zoning. And happy to answer any questions between the two of us that we have.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I'm going to open it up to the committee for commentary. Anyone wants to go first?
Is it possible for us to see or get a description? I know you may have said it once, but one more time of what, I think you said it was a garage door that's going to be on the front of this.
Yeah, if you go forward one slide, I mean, you can see it on the front here. It's this large opening, corresponds to the existing windows.
Was there a rendering of it with the garage door closed?
No, but you can see, you know, it would be visible on the inside if you go forward to the interior renderings.
And does the garage door have windows? I guess what is that?
Yeah, we're showing it as more of a transparent feel. I think we would like for that to be the case.
And then just so I'm
There's a goal.
clear, you're eliminating the man door then that is shown next to.
No,
this?
we're keeping that.
Okay. But it's that
We're
opening
eliminating.
on the porch.
There's a series, if you go to the existing photos, exterior photos, they're closer to the beginning of the presentation. Or we could look at the elevation too, either or. So you can see, yeah, in those exteriors, there's these 3 windows on the front in the upper right elevation, and there's an existing man door that we would try to keep.
I guess I would like to see a cut sheet or something to understand what the garage door looks like. I
Yeah,
don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, my first comment was exactly what Margaret's comment was, and I wondered, and I understand for programmatic reasons you would like it to be an open space, but in trying to keep with the fenestration of the street, would you maybe consider an accordion door system? So you have some divisions, some vertical divisions, and then when you want to open it up, you can, but then when it's closed, which will be, I think, probably the majority of the time, it matches more, attempts to match more closely the fenestration of the streets. I think a garage door is on 32nd just doesn't, it wouldn't be appropriate. But I hear what you're trying to do.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not married to
we could look
any.
into that. Sorry, yeah, we could look into that. I guess, you know, when we went through the conceptual on this, we didn't hear anything about the garage door, so we never made any change to it. It was not any feedback we received. So, you know, we're happy to look into it. I just, you know, I want to, you know,
Fair enough.
kind of be clear that we're here for final. Yeah.
Fair enough, Brand. I get you.
But
Everything
everything else I think is, yeah, the preservation of everything else, thumbs up. I don't have any other comments.
Yeah, it's
Go
a
ahead,
good
Al.
point. It will be closed most of the time, so it's worth looking at. And I think something that preserves the character and the rhythm, I think makes sense. We'll definitely, you know, keep looking at that as we get out of the conceptual phase and more into the details.
Yeah, but I think we're open to either keeping those windows or doing, you know, an accordion sort of door like you're proposing there, Alex. And I apologize, Margaret.
No, if we missed that earlier, we apologize too. So,
Sure.
and then
Yeah, I don't have it in my notes. So,
okay. Margaret, if you don't have anything else, I just have one more comment. No. On the windows, I hear you're trying to keep them. That's great. If you do replace them, would you mind maybe sending to Dan just so we know that that their buttons are external, that it's being replaced one for one, as similarly as possible?
sure. Yeah, we could have the would you like that now, or if we get to once we get to the construction part? of
If
this?
you get to the construction, you determine that they're not usable going forward, maybe send that to Dan if Dan's agreeable to that. And if
Sure.
not, and you're going to reuse them, then that's the most preferable option.
Yeah, happy to. Yep.
Thank
know,
you,
it's,
guys. Nothing further.
this project is, yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for your feedback. This project is next to two historic buildings and next to a, you know, it's in a historic neighborhood. So our intention would be to make it fit in with the other work that we're doing, right? So
I will. Oh, I had a couple of questions. I feel like we might have discussed this, but do you guys know the slope of the drive lane? Like, is the drive lane on the side um, low enough for like a wheelchair to get up the ramp?
We checked it. Yeah, it's
yes,
not it's less than 1/12 slope.
Okay. All right. Got it.
yeah, we actually did that the next day after that feedback. So it was good thought. So
All right. Good. Then I saw there was a parking lot in the back per on the site plan. Um, is
yes.
there, I know you said you weren't planning on having this be open late, but like, is there plans for any kind of lot lighting, dumpster? There's dumpster back there. Is there lighting for that? I mean, I know it's kind of a
Yeah,
steep.
so that no, it's a good question. That lot is actually associated with the apartment redevelopment projects.
Oh,
So
okay.
those are ADA parking spots for the old mansion, specifically for the old mansion and the dormitory building.
Okay.
So what we're calling the dormitory. So I'd had to go back and take a look, but I would. It's been fully approved, so there's got to be, you know, lighting back there for safety. It's
Gotcha.
just the lot is not actually related to this specific project.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd be happy to, if I could find that presentation, I'd be happy to send that.
Okay. Um, Regarding the wall at the end of the porch that you said was closed off, great decision. It's kind of good for privacy. I wouldn't mind like a high window, but I'm sure that's just me, like a really high, like that top louver.
Mhm.
I don't mind that idea, but it looks really great. I think this would be a great addition to the neighborhood. I'm not as married to the garage door thing. I know in what's the third to last rendering? Go to the next one, or if you can switch. Keep going. That next one. That one. Yes. Nope. Go back one. There we go. This is it. You can kind of see the. Go back one.
The other one, I think.
Yeah, this one.
Sorry, the delay doesn't make it out.
You can kind of see what the door is doing there, and it looks like it's like 4 verticals. I assume, I mean, that's probably the bottom bar. It's probably like a few inches, but like I kind of get a little bit of the gist of what's happening with the garage door. I'm not as married to this. I think going down 30, I think this building already sets itself apart from everything else and its style and its, kind of everything. Like it's kind of defines its own style. And I think cruising down like 32nd, there are a few homes, driveways, and you can see to the back, and they actually do have garages. I mean, it's not the most common thing, but there are several homes on 32nd where you can see the garage from the street, and there's like a solid garage door, which I think so seeing that, I don't think you match those. I think a translucent or kind of modern garage door is probably it's fine, you know? This isn't a house. This isn't trying to be a house. Um, this is what it is. I don't think you have to match to be contextual. I don't think you have to match context one to one. I think sometimes it's okay to go against it. And I think this is sort of it's historic, but it's got kind of a contemporary feel to it. And I think being contemporary is totally fine. Um, I'm sure, folks have other opinions, but this this place is new and it is what it is. So don't try to force anything that may or may not work. It is worth looking into those like Renlita does that folding door, and but I also know that folding door is expensive. So which may or may not compare to a overhead door. So that's up to you. Trust your design.
No, they're sweating in the gym.
Oh. So that's all I really have. Does anyone else on the committee have things to say, to add?
I have a couple of questions. Hi, Red. Are there other windows that you're maintaining on the north? It's the north side, right? That faces the nearby resident. Are there windows there?
Outside.
Okay. Yep, south side. Are there other windows that you're maintaining on that side?
We would
So,
like
yeah,
we
so
would like
we're
to not get rid of windows if possible, but it will depend on the floor plan of the actual tenant. You know, they may put a kitchen there. You know, we may take that opportunity to create privacy by the floor plan layout, but that remains to be. I mean, it's a big variable because it depends what type of business is in here, what they need. But any windows that are on the south side, we're gonna, you know, basically make as translucent and privacy conscious as possible.
Okay.
right.
And
So
then,
kind of like privacy glass, which I think was suggested last time.
does that prevent others from looking in or out?
They're pretty high. They're like those windows are like over my head, I think.
Yeah,
Aren't they, Mike?
the window sills, it's kind of deceptive. The whole building looks like a little out of proportion. You can tell here, yeah, the window sills I think are 7 feet off the ground.
Yeah, I'm 6'2" and I can't see out of them. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually really helpful to know. Um,
Yeah, you can see.
yeah, I really appreciate some of the changes you made. I'm very sensitive, obviously, to. I think it's important that we consider what it would be like, you know, being that neighbor in such close proximity, and what it would feel like living there. And um, I'm still a bit concerned with, especially having the garage doors open and the activity and potential sound and rather large groups that could really feel as though they're really part of the home next door. And I really do appreciate the changes you've made to accommodate some privacy things. I think that that's just something I'm struggling with a bit still. And a lot of that will obviously have to do with the operator. And so if you get the zoning change, which I assume you will, to be general retail, I mean, there's really no guarantee that it can't be something that is late, right? I mean, if you have a great operator who wants to come to you and say like, hey, we really want to put this cafe, we want to have some late hours on the weekends, or, you know, even some weekdays. I mean, that is a possibility, right?
I suppose it could be. I've never opened up a restaurant or a business, and so I don't know what the channels are if they have to then go get approval from the neighborhood to do that, and in doing so, do they need to define their hours? But I think that's yeah. I mean, I can't as the owner or developer restrict. I mean, I guess I could and say, hey, you guys can only be open to this late, but you know, it's up to the operator, right, too. Um, and I guess, and I do have a question as well as it relates to those windows on the south side. My feeling is that landmarks might push back on the removal of those because this isn't a landmarks district. So I think we've got to do our best to create privacy, as I believe you suggested
Yeah.
at the last time we met. And so, yeah, create some sort of, semi, translucent, not transparent, and, even if it's hanging up some, privacy shades or something. Luckily, it is kind of higher, they're at a higher elevation. And I
Another thing
think hopefully
to
Yeah, and that
closing
elevation
off
is
the porch
helpful.
there will, yeah.
Yeah,
Closing
and
off the porch will kind of shade, keep the sound away from any neighbor to the south.
I wouldn't recommend eliminating the windows. It's yeah, just privacy concerns for throughout the whole house. I mean, there's little things that I'm kind of looking at too, like the trash behind the building, which is obviously a necessity. Trash from a commercial building versus a home is going to be very different. That being so close to someone's house. I mean, there's little things like that, which like if there could be like an enclosure or something around the trash that could kind of help prevent you know, smell and, things that happen in the summer or whatnot. I think that would be helpful. You don't have a picture of the back of the building, do you? And how, that relates to the home? Because these, yeah, I
Closest
think
you can
that,
see is that sort of street view there.
yeah, I really kind of would like to see the back and how it relates to the house, because you have it next to Franklin Yard, and obviously the driveway provides some distance there. It looks like a large drive and green space. So yeah, if there's ways in the back to help kind of more separate the AC, whatever utilities you have out there, the trash, even like the
Yeah.
parking and stuff.
What about like some fence or something?
Yeah, fencing, landscaping,
Yeah.
yeah.
See if we fenced at the lot line or landscape back there. And I was thinking about the trash and how it could relate to the overall trash for the apartment project. And, there may be, I think if you kind of fenced at the lot line there to enclose that from the south side neighbor, I think that would be a reasonable solution to provide some privacy from the AC and the trash, right? And then as it relates to the trash usage, I think it would somehow get tied in with the overall trash management for the um, northerly project, right?
I mean, it's just being a cafe restaurant. I mean, the trash is going to be at a level that, a homeowner, wouldn't produce. So,
Sure.
so I want to, and you have been very, very thoughtful about this. And I know that I pushed the kind of privacy and maintaining, as much normalcy for the existing homeowners as possible. So, but I appreciate your responses, and I think a fence would be great. And I don't know if we could add that as something that we'd like to see moving forward or as a condition, but I'd appreciate that.
I
But
think that's a reasonable condition on our end, and it's something we could include in landmarks should we get to that stage.
okay. Otherwise, I think the design overall is lovely, especially if it were in a different context. It'd make me super, super happy. But yeah, I appreciate your consideration. And one last thing, that the large coffee sign, obviously because you don't have an operator, it might not say coffee. Are you married to that? Having something large in text there or in the front of
Or
the
on
building?
the bottom, on the front of the. Nah, I think that's just Mike's vision,
Okay.
just his artistic vision. He can do
Yeah.
anything with it.
Yeah,
We're not really
I mean,
married
I
to,
think
we're not married to
the
anything.
yeah.
we're
Okay.
not looking
Yeah,
at
I
signage.
think the blade signage on the left hand side would be on the northerly side would be the actual signage for the business.
Okay.
Yeah, but what
That's my only design comment is I think it looks sharper without something written in the front like that. But
and whatever signage package they decide to go with will have to come back for approval. So we're not looking at signage today, just the building. Once they have an operator, we can get into the signage details. I also did want to point out, I believe it's city code that if you do have a dumpster on site, it has to be enclosed. So you'll have to put a dumpster enclosure of some type in there. So I don't know if I assume you were thinking dumpster and not sort of smaller bins or something like that, but yeah, I think pretty sure that's still in the code.
We'll provision for that. I think if we fence and create a gate basically around it, boom. Something like
Yeah.
that.
Easy.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any
And
additional?
it, yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, it looks like Nia's joined us too. So I don't know if you want to finish this one out and then hand over the reins, or
Yeah,
unless you were itching to make a motion, Bill.
yeah, I'm happy to step down and let Nia take over.
I'm sorry. I'm between appointments again today, so I'm sorry I was late. My only question is, Dan, did Landmarks receive any like feedback or commentary from the immediate neighbors with concerns, or nothing?
We have not received any public comments, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we did do an informative meeting for the block club, and just only let them know our intentions of what we're going to do here, which is go through this process and ultimately go through BZA. I was told that that's all I had to do because you're just doing a zoning change. So
No, that's fine. I just didn't know if Landmarks had received anything kind of on the heels of Whitney's points. But
Yeah.
I largely agree with my colleagues, and I also am a little indifferent. I'm indifferent on the garage door, so that's it for
Nia,
me.
Nia, I also wanted to mention there is no meeting agenda publicly posted anymore. So neighbors don't have, I mean, maybe I'm sure you showed them something at Block Club, but if someone wasn't able to attend Block Club or something, there's nothing from the city or Ohio City that provides this information, the agenda of these committee meetings to the public.
Interesting. Dan, was there like a policy change or a change there, or is it something that we could reinstate?
No, we like on the city's website, we post the Landmarks Commission agendas. We've never posted the design review agendas for landmarks on the city's website. We're hoping to, but we're still waiting on our new website that should give us that capability. So I think historically Ohio City has put them up on their websites. Not
Yeah, I
sure
can,
if there was a change there. Oh, yeah,
hello,
Julia's here.
this is Julia from Ohio City Inc. Our website has been under construction, so we haven't been able to post our agendas consistently, but we have been posting on YouTube the recordings of all of these meetings. So those are still up, and apologies about the agenda. We're just going through some staffing changes and website changes. Thank you.
Yeah, and with we try and get the Landmarks Commission agendas posted, Friday morning, so pretty much a full week before the meeting. So that's when we usually receive most public comment, is before the commission meetings as opposed to before the committee meetings. So hopefully people, if they have an issue, will still have an opportunity to chime in.
Yeah, I think this going to Landmarks, and also with the zoning change, they'll have their own avenue of notification, but it's just something to note, not necessarily even for this project, but Whitney, we can talk about that, or see if there's a way to support it getting more widely distributed.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to, can I still make a motion if I'm not chairing at the moment? What do you want to do?
I guess that's, yeah, whichever one of you is chairing cannot make a motion. So if you make a motion, I'll assume Phil's still chairing.
Okay.
Sure. If you were about ready to make a motion, let's go for it.
Well, I guess, does anyone else, Brant, do you have any comments, or anyone else?
No, I agree with the rest of the members.
Okay, then I will move to approve as presented with the condition of some type of landscape screening, fence, or foliage on the south side of the property, and the strong consideration for a bifold door system over a garage door. Is that agreeable?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll
Thanks, Alex.
Dan, could you call?
Sure thing. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty,
Yes.
Mr. Frondor,
Yes.
Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
and Mr. Talley.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Right.
Thank you all, and yeah, thank you for your time. And also, you guys have given great feedback throughout this process. So I appreciate that. It's actionable feedback, which is good for us as developers. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
and
thank you all.
I think we have you penciled in for a commission meeting next week. But we'll email about that and confirm and get your updated renderings in that presentation.
Yeah, we'll take a look. I may actually be out of town, so if not, we'll do
Okay.
it next
Yeah.
week. Okay.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
All right. Our next agenda item is case HOC 24-30 at 2051 West 25th Street, Green's Salad Company, with signage. We got Mark Branovic here from Advanced Installation and Sign Service with a proposal. So, yeah, Mark, just let me know when you want me to advance the slides. Yeah, I guess Nia, you're officially chairing again now.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mark.
And thank you and good afternoon. We are proposing a wall sign and a blade sign, both illuminated at this property. The first slide is the property as it exists, and a rendering of the proposed sign, although a little hard to see on that slide. There's a wall sign above the door, a blade sign depicted by the line next to the 10-foot measurement. Property lease lines as well measured out to 41 feet, 10.5 inches. Next slide, please. There's a better view of the sign as proposed. Next slide, please. Another depiction, measurements and construction detail. It's black returns, pretty standard stuff, LED illumination. Through bolts, fascia steel on that property. Next slide, please. The view of the proposed blade sign. There is a sconce on the wall that, as indicated, will be removed to install the sign. It's a 2-foot by 2-foot blade sign, edge lit illumination. Next slide, please. There's a side depiction and a mounting depiction of the blade sign. Next slide, please. And just a detail of the storefront as existing. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think I only have one question, which is how high off the ground is the blade sign?
I called that into question too. Was my understanding that it is a 10-foot minimum.
Okay.
In this area.
And that would still, so it would be at least 10 feet off the ground?
Correct. There's room for adjustment there as well. But my understanding was it was a 10-foot minimum clearance.
Okay. It seems just based off of the photo and the scale that it would be, that you should have sufficient space. So I'm not concerned. It's more just that's not noted on the drawing. I think my only comment or suggestion, I'm fine with both signs in terms of scale. I think the black, like, trim cap, I guess, I don't know if that's the correct term. I'm just trying to read your drawing. My concern is, I guess, just in the rendering, it doesn't look like the sign is got enough contrast on that dark facade. So if there's a consideration for doing a lighter outline, something to, I don't think it's lit either, illuminated. So it's like, and that could just be a product of the rendering. So I would just probably leave it up to the client if they agreed with that, but maybe consider outlining it in a white so that it can actually stand out from the facade.
Yeah, as existing, it doesn't. The returns are black, so that would be on a side view. From the front, with these being individual letters, the trim caps would be that darker green. So if there was an adjustment, excuse me, made, it would have to be on the trim caps.
Okay, that's just a suggestion. I don't know that they have to do it. I think it would just maybe be beneficial for visibility.
Understood.
That's all for me.
I just want to second that. I'm looking at the Google Maps because that area is like where that material is Corten steel, and I'm like, and it's captured here. It's actually a little bit. It's like a little bit brighter, maybe in person. So it almost feels like you take a color sample and put it up next to it and see how it comes out, just to be sure this is exactly what you want to do. I have no other complaints with the sign as is. And I'm sure if these letters are individually lit, then it's not going to be an issue. But yeah, it almost seems like it needs like a background or something. That's all I got.
I mean, you could do greens and white with like a dark green trim cap. That might help it pop, but just the thinness of the letters doesn't allow for, I don't know how much punch you'd get out of a trim cap change, to be honest.
Right.
Well stated. That it would contrast some, but as Nia said, the owner, I'll ask them to consider that some sort of contrast there. I think part of the part of the appearance issue is just the rendering, but and especially illuminated, I believe it will stand out.
Anyone else?
Muted. If no one else has a comment, would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve as presented with consideration for either looking at the with consideration for looking at the sign in contrast with the material behind it, possibly looking at the trim cap color.
I'll second.
Dan, can you call the roll?
Sure, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty? Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Ms. Land,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Talley,
Yes.
and Ms. Marinucci.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, Mark, I'll be in touch about next steps. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have HOC 24-31 at 2926 Carroll Avenue. Fencing project. Representative from, I believe, MAE Fence Company, and I think someone from St. Ignatius here who owns the property. It's an existing fence, but I guess given the age of it and the changes to code as far as what's allowable there at intersections and close to right of ways and the change in style, we thought you guys should take a look at it. So I know we don't see a lot of straight fencing projects, but yeah, with that, Lloyd, is this?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, take it away and walk through your presentation. Let me know when you want me to change slides. Thanks.
Okay, what we're looking to do here is to replace this wood 6-foot privacy fence with a vinyl 6-foot privacy fence with approximately 20 feet of fencing being on 30th and 35 feet of fencing going down Carroll Court. And there's also a man gate, a 4-foot man gate on the 30th side. And I believe in the slide, there should be a picture of the material that's being used for the new fencing. If you keep going. Keep going. One more. There it is. That's the material that we're proposing that we use for the new fencing. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Lloyd. Just a couple of clarification questions. Is the color of the fence a white or is it like a grayish? Because on my screen it kind of looks like
No,
beige.
it's tan, the exact
Okay,
same color of the fencing shown.
got it.
And it
And
matches the exterior of the property.
yes, um, what is the use for this property again?
It's the Jesuit house for the high school.
And who are the users? Like, is it students? Is it service?
No, it's the Jesuit priest.
Oh, okay, got it,
Yeah, for the high school.
got it. And I don't know this off the top of my head, so hopefully my fellow architects can help me out here. Do we have a zoning? Would this require a variance to have a 6-foot fence on the alley? Does anyone know?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
It was more like my colleagues know. Dan, do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
Jessica, I think, has some information on that. She's, I think, asked the
I've had
zoning
to
folks.
I've had to look into this. It's been a number of years, but the height of the fence issue is typically on the street and not on the alley, the way that the code's defined. But I'm speaking from memory, and so I don't want to say that I'm 100% certain of that.
That's what I thought too, Alex. But then I'm getting confusing
yes, I
myself
can
with
speak to
the.
that if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I did reach out to our zoning colleagues to get their feedback on this, and the project will require a variance. It's just not clear exactly which variance at this point because the code that references the kind of variances for how close fences can be to the sidewalk in the street does not specify a difference between alleys and streets. And so it is very close to the try to find the exact wording, but very close to the street. And so it would either need a variance because it should be 4 feet and anything above 4 feet is not allowed, or because it's so close to the corner, it's either should be 2.5 feet and anything above that, and also the privacy with no visibility at that corner. So there are variances. It's just I would have to pull that up, but there is at least one variance that is required because 6 feet is allowed if it's set 4 feet back from the side street property line and should be less than 50% opacity. So a 6-foot privacy fence right on the property line at an intersection immediately gets flagged for a variance.
Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, obviously, whether or not they get granted a variance is kind of out of our hands, but I'm personally okay with the 6-foot height as it's an existing condition. They're effectively replacing what is there. I'm also not opposed to the use of vinyl in this application. It seems like an attractive fence and it makes sense. Again, just replacing what's there. So I would be in support of this from a design standpoint.
Just to clarify, is what's there now a wood fence?
Yes.
I like Nia have no problem with the height or the location, though that is for zoning. But I would not be able to support vinyl fencing. I think in the heart of the historic district, it needs to remain wood or another natural material. Would you be willing to consider replacing it in kind with a wood fence?
I mean, I can propose it. I mean, I don't see why not. It's just, the vinyl lasts a little longer, it's more durable. I thought it was more attractive.
Anyone else? No? Should I make a motion? Okay, hearing none. I'll move to approve on the condition that it be a wood fence and not a vinyl fence.
Second.
All right, hearing no other comments. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Flaherty? Yes. Mr. Frondorf,
Yes.
Ms. Lamb,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Talley,
Yes.
and Ms. Marinucci.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Lloyd will be in touch about next steps and yeah, give you a chance to talk to your the property owner and see if wood is in the cards. So yeah, we'll touch base later today or tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
All right. Now we're moving on to concept schematic reviews. First off, we have case HOC 24-32 at 2038 West 29th Street. Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church, their former school. Michael Horton here from Horton Harp Architects, looking to make some renovations to their school building, which actually fronts on 29th behind the church. So I saw Michael here. There's Wes. Wes, are you doing this today?
Yeah, you're stuck with me today.
Okay.
Michael
Man,
is
just kidding.
on vacation. So I'm going to fill in. I'm also joined by Matt Burgess and Mike Wilmot from the development and construction team to fill in any gaps that I may have in my knowledge. But
Hey, Wes,
slide, please. Yeah.
Wes, really quick before you get into it, can you clarify ownership team for this?
Yes, it is Burgess. Matt, I'm sorry. What's the name of the LLC that owns the building?
School of 29 LLC. It's myself and my
Okay.
partner Mike Wilmot.
Okay, I just was checking for any conflict of interest. But we're good. Please
No
proceed.
Okay, thanks. Next slide, please. So the project site is south of Lorraine Avenue on the western side of West 29th Street, just east of the Trinity Evangelical Church, which is on 30th, then of course south of St. Ignatius, on the north side of Lorraine and on the south side at certain points. Next. Zoomed in a little bit more, you can see the footprint of the structure we're going to be discussing today. You can also see the adjacency to the Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church, of which this school was a part of until recently. This building has been split off from the church and is its own entity, of course, now. Next. So we'll just go through some contextual imagery. Here is an image of the church on West 30th. So we're looking east in this image. Next. Here we're looking more towards the southeast on West 30th. Next. Here we have some of the St. Ignatius context. This is the Performing Arts Center on the southern portion of Lorraine, west side of West 30th. Next. Another view. Next. Here's, of course, the St. Ignatius main building. Another structure. This is a little bit further west on Lorraine. You can start to see some of the geometries in some of the surrounding context will eventually kind of overlay into our proposal for the renovation of the building we're talking about today. Next. Here's the Loyola Hall at Carroll and I believe the old West 30th. Next. Another St. Ignatius structure on Carroll Avenue. Next. Student Center for St. Ignatius. Next. And then one of the more recent renovations of structure in the area. This is at West 32nd and Carroll, southwest corner. Next. And then I believe it's the Chapel of St. Ignatius, which is across the street from the Performing Arts Building. Next. So here is the existing condition of the Luther Memorial School. This elevation faces West 29th Street, so we're looking at the east facade. You can see that we have the existing structure in brick with a sandstone base, and then the original window openings are a little bit more horizontal than vertical. Windows that are currently in these masonry openings we believe were installed in the 1950s, replacing a more vertically oriented window system, which we'll see here in a few moments. The windows are also covered by a metal panel system to manage sunlight. So, you know, this building probably hasn't seen a lot of attention in decades. In some of the historical photos, you'll see that there was at one point somewhat ornate cornice at the upper heights of the building. That has previously rotted off and been removed, leaving us with a more rectilinear cap. Next. Here we're looking at the western facade, similar window system, of course, and sun shading devices. To the left, you can see an addition to the existing building. We're not exactly sure when that addition occurred. It does kind of look like 1940s vintage, in my opinion, but there's no hard and fast date on that. In the foreground, at the base of the building, slightly to the right, you can see that there is a stairway that leads down to the basement of the existing structure. We're proposing for that to be removed. Currently, that is the only access to the basement, but we are proposing to lower the floor of the first floor of the existing structure to meet ADA requirements. Next. Here we have a very interesting facade facing Keene Court to the south of the building. For whatever reason, this facade has the most ornate detailing of any of the facades, with a partially arched set of windows on the first and second floors, the existing fire escape, which was likely added at a later date, and then a central doorway here that is accessed from old brick and concrete stairway. So we'll again get into the proposal here of what we're looking to do with this facade, but it's kind of a unique condition where Keene Court is the primary facade of this building, which was somewhat surprising. Next. Here's the northern facade. You can see the addition from possibly the 1940s at right. There is right now the main entry to the building coming into that addition. And that basically leads you into a stairwell that heads up to the second floor. And if you turn left, you're into first floor space. We're looking to eliminate that doorway and replace it with a window, which again we'll get into proposed renderings and elevations. The windows on say the older structure have all been bricked in, so that would be something, of course, that we'd be managing in the new design. Next. So here, just looking down Keene Court to the west, you can see the rear of the structures facing the Lutheran school. Next. And then a little further south on West 30th. Next. And then looking south on West 30th towards Kyle Field is the name. And then north on 29th. Actually, we've been on 29th this whole time, not 30th. Looking north on West 29th. Next. And a parking lot across the street. Next. This is the current parking lot for the church to the north of the existing school. And as we get into the site plans, we can talk about how the church and this school structure would be kind of trading off access to parking. Next. So here is the existing condition site plan. To the north is up. We have West 29th, north and south to the right, and then the existing alley, which used to be Keene Court, running all the way to West 26th Street. Doesn't do that anymore. But you can see that the majority of the northern side of the school structure and the church is all parking. And so, there's obviously many times where the church isn't utilizing the parking. So depending on the use of the school, we're proposing that school structure could potentially use that parking. And then on Sundays, when the church has their weekly gathering, they'd be able to use all of the parking that's on our site, essentially. So we've been in close contact with the church itself, and maintaining a good relationship. Next. So the proposed layout adds a more efficient parking lot. It also removes a couple parking spots from essentially the front yard of the existing school building. And we'd be replacing that with a patio that could be used by a future tenant, and really adds kind of a nice pedestrian point on West 29th Street. If you wanted to discuss any of the parking specifically, we can refer back to this. But we'd have a fair amount of landscaping here. It's still kind of in the works into exactly what that plan would be. We're looking to have a bit of a green buffer against the sidewalk, and then fairly dense landscaping at that northeast corner. Next. So zoomed in a little bit at the southwestern portion of the building, you can see that we're putting the air conditioning condensers as well as a screening fence. You can see the footprint of that removed stairway that leads to the basement, and then the area that is proposed to be permeable pavers for that front patio, and a handful of Corten steel planters and the landscaping. Next. Here we have, I guess, the formal preliminary landscaping and lighting scheme. Be placing light fixtures around the structure for security and lighting the structure itself. Next. Preliminary tree preservation plan. We won't be eliminating any trees. Obviously, we potentially be adding landscaping, but we would eventually have a formal tree preservation plan executed by an arborist to the standards of the city for permit. Next. So for the floor plans, at left we have the first floor, at right we have the top floor. And so in the existing plans, if you look at the new plan, the first floor, if you look at the entry and reception base, those double doors are new, and they basically create a more proper reception area for the structure when compared to the current entry to the, basically, if you look at the stairway to the upper right, the doors are actually coming in just to the northeast, I guess, in plan here. So since we're lowering the first floor slab, we're going to, in order to get us ADA accessibility, that landing where people are currently entering is now elevated. And so we're kind of containing all of the stairs to a place where people that can use the stairs can use them, but then we also have ADA accessible entry and then an elevator that's up to the second floor. We also have an ADA accessible restroom adjacent to the elevator to meet that code requirement. And then essentially we have 2 areas of flex space that could be office, it could be charter school, it could be any number of things. And so we're kind of leaving it as open, flexible as possible for the future tenant. The second floor is much the same, a restroom, 2 flex spaces, the elevator. And then really the biggest change in regards to the exterior would be adding new windows, all of the existing openings, and then the new entry double door area at the reception. Next. So here is a historical photo of the West 29th Street facade. You can see the existing masonry openings, as I mentioned, remain the same. However, the window system that's in there now is certainly more horizontally oriented. And so the window system that we're proposing here today will essentially be matching what you see here. Again, creating these 3 vertical elements within the masonry opening, and then basically 4 sets of large double hung windows that are 4/4. At the cornice line, you can see the former cornice as it existed. It's obviously a lovely detail. Unfortunately, it's something that did not last. And essentially, from what we can tell, it had a flat roof atop the cornice, which then kicked back the water towards the building. You can see the downspouts at either side here. Over time, this assembly completely rotted out because it was a flat roof there and was removed. So again, as nice as this detail is, in order to replicate this, we'd have to reframe much of the roof structure to get the pitch all the way to the overhang. And as it stands currently, that's not something that we're proposing. Next. Here, you have attentive students to the person at the front of the class, but really this image is about the windows that you can see in the background. Obviously, we've got those 4 sets of windows. That's what we're proposing. Next. Here is the existing eastern elevation. Again, you can see the horizontally oriented windows and the sunshades. Next. The proposed elevation removes that window system, replicates the previous and original window system, puts a new standing seam metal roof, new gutter, downspouts, everything is cleaned up. The brick would be retuck pointed in its entirety. And then to the north, or to the right here, the 1940s addition, again, we're removing that existing set of double doors, replacing it with a large circular window that would allow light into that stairway and create a bit of a design element as you're walking to the main entry, which is on the facade to the left. Since we'll be retuck pointing and removing certain areas of brick, the idea is to reuse the brick that's being removed, clean it up, and then reuse it in some of these areas where we're filling in the brick. And since we're retuck pointing, all of the mortar that's visible would be the same color. So we think that the brick infill, which would also be toothed into the existing brick, would be as seamless as possible. Next. Here we have the existing west facade. We looked at the photos of this. You can see at the right, there is an ornamental metal bracket on that fire escape. If we go to the next page, you can see that we'll be maintaining that. and then, of course, replacing all the windows on this facade. Next slide, please. So again, new standing seam metal roof, cleaning up the brick, new windows, and spiffing up the fire escape. Next. Here's the northern facade. Again, taking out the brick infill in the windows of the existing structure. And then if we go to the next page, replacing some of the glass block windows, or all of them actually, with double hung windows that are similar in spirit and design as the new windows in the openings that you see on left. So the new main entry that you see here, which is highlighted by the arched brick opening, be a fair amount of glazing there, of course, double doors. And we think that the arch, while not currently in the existing design of the original structure, we think that it still kind of relates to some of the detailing that's happening throughout the building, but still kind of marks itself as a contemporary modification to the existing structure. Next. Southern facade. Again, all the brick windows are filled in. A lot of brick detailing here. Fire escape leading down towards the east, and a handful of electrical meters, gas meters, vents, ducts. A lot of infrastructure is kind of added up over the years here, and that would, of course, be cleaned up and removed. Next. Again, replacing each window opening here, double hungs that are more in line with the original intent. There is access door in the middle. You can see the AC condenser that is screened by a new fence, and much of the infrastructure has been removed off of this facade. Next. Here's just some larger details of some of the windows. The windows themselves would be, you'd have the muntins inside the windows, but then they'd also be outside of the windows and on the inside as well. So while they would not be individually divided lights, taking great lengths to represent that kind of window. Next. And here's the first rendering that we'll take a look at. This is looking towards the southwest. Of course, you can see the new windows facing West 29th Street, the potentially active patio at the face of that facade, and then the new engagements with the new double doors on that northern facade, and then the circular window placing the double doors in the stairway. You can also see the standing seam metal roof, all of the new details, trim, flashing, window frames would all be a dark bronze color. Next. More review as you head south on 29th Street, getting a little more detail into those windows, patio. You can also see the Core 10 planters front. Next. And then here we are looking towards the northwest. This is the alley / Keene Court facade. Again, we'd be maintaining that fire escape, cleaning up a lot of the utility lines and abandoned piping off this facade and replacing all of the windows. Next. Here's a somewhat elevated view so you can see a little bit more of the entry. Next. And then the patio, of course, on the front. Next. Next. Our material palette, which is represented in the renderings. Next. if that's it, open up to questions. But first, the one thing or the two things that I think specifically we'd like to get, hopefully, your commentary and hopefully approval are the windows and the roofing elements. The structure, we want to get this thing weathered in before the weather breaks here for the winter. So I think if possible, at the very least, we'd like to get mostly commentary on that, and hopefully, which would allow us to potentially move forward to the next step, and hopefully getting this weather tight before the winter comes. But other than that, I'd be happy to hear your comments on the project in its entirety. Dan, I believe this is for conceptual review. And I believe we're on the docket for city landmarks next Thursday. So
correct. Yep. Yeah. So just feedback, no vote. Yeah, like Wes said, I think a primary concern, or where they really want the feedback is on the windows, roofing, that sort of thing. A lot of it is, just the masonry should be pretty straightforward as far as the restoration. But so any feedback you have, I'm sure Wes and his team would love to hear.
Thank you, Wes. Does anyone want to start?
I'll start. I like the window selection and obviously appreciate something that goes back to what's more closely matching the historic. I just wondered if there would be consideration for a arch top window just on the south elevation where those existing brick hoods are. It wouldn't be like a make or break for me, but I think it would be a nice touch if those were arch top and didn't have that piece of squared off infill. The one thing that I disagree with in terms of appropriateness is the standing seam metal roof. I just don't see a relationship to the building type or the time period that these were constructed in our area. And then my only other comment would be for the brick. I think it's terrific that you're looking to reuse if possible. It might be nice to source a potential match in case there's not enough, and to have that ready to present when it's time for final, because I think that this particular brick might be a little bit difficult to find a new match.
yeah, that's no problem. In terms of the arched windows, it's interesting. The historic image that we found that is, think a couple slides up. If you zoom in, that one. You zoom into the, I don't know if you can zoom here. If you could place the arrow straight up, Dan, basically the second floor, the top of the, right there. It looks as though the windows that are currently there were a flat top window. It's somewhat hard to tell here, but it could be something where that was the original, or the windows that are in this image weren't original. I'm not exactly sure. So I guess in terms of what we've found in the imagery, I'm not sure if the arch windows were an original detail.
Okay. I was able to zoom in on my second screen and I can sort of see that.
Yeah.
I just wondered about this, just the one elevation with the hoods, with the ornamental hoods, because that arch seems to, well, I guess again, I can't tell from this historic photograph if that one is more defined, but just a consideration, not a,
sure.
Like I said, it's not a make or break.
And then Matt Burgess, I don't know if you wanted to comment on the metal roofing.
Yeah, please, thanks. The main intent with the metal roofing is the longevity of it and the ability to add solar in the future. I know solar is not a historic feature, but it's sort of my passion in this business is the energy efficiency and the future production, you know, making buildings solar ready. So with standing seam metal roof, that's what you want to do. You can clip the solar on really easily with no punctures.
I don't know if you've ever considered a solar shingle, but they look really nice and they look, you know, definitely is shingled, so it would be more in keeping with the look of a historic material for this area.
Yeah, we don't intend to put solar on it in this current phase. We just like to make our projects solar ready so that they could sort of with the net zero energy mindset. But if that's in opposition to what this committee is looking to approve, then just let us know.
On the window component, can you clarify, are the muttons that you're proposing external or internal?
They would actually be internal to the window glazing itself, but then we would also add the exterior muntins to both sides. So the problem with some of the windows that only have the muntins on the outside is that you can actually see through the glass. So the windows we're buying would actually have the muntins inside, but then we'd order them to also put them on the outside.
Okay, all right, that was my main concern. I think that satisfies it. And then the only other comment is when going for the tuck pointing, and overall, this is a great project. I'm glad that you're restoring it to the way it was here in this image. So thank you. On the tuck pointing, if you could match, I've not studied it very carefully, but if you could match the existing grout color, sometimes we see people come in and they slap up Portland cement or a color that's inappropriate. It just, you can tell what happened there. So pay careful attention to the color of the mortar and how it's struck.
Will do.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I'll add my comments. They're not many. I think what you asked for, windows and roof, I think everything in my book, this is a really great kind of restoration of what this was, and including kind of new added design elements for the additional entry and window at the stair. So those are my comments.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the rest of my colleagues as far as what you're proposing to do here. I have no issues with. My only comment is just kind of about the presentation itself. I was hoping for if this comes back, we can condense the context images down to a little bit less slides. It's 24 pages of context photos. And I appreciate the detailed and thorough research into the neighborhood and layout, but I just think we can probably condense a little bit. That's pretty much it.
I agree.
I apologize because I am in the car now, but I agree with my colleagues. I also debated a little bit about the standing seam roof in its appropriateness, though I think I would be open to it in this application. And I do think all in all, it's a really attractive and great project.
Thanks.
I believe we've heard from everyone on the committee. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Oh, we're not
This is just
voting.
for schematic,
Oh my
so
gosh, I'm
there's
sorry, I forgot.
no motion today.
Wes, do you feel like you've gotten sufficient feedback?
I do.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Wes.
you.
Yeah, we do, I believe, have it penciled in for next week's commission meeting where you can go get some conceptual feedback from them as well. So last up, I think they're still waiting here online. We have another conceptual schematic review for case HOC 24-33, the West Side Market, 1979 West 25th Street for some additions and renovations. So with that, Amy, let me know when you want me to proceed through the slides.
Dan, I'm gonna have to recuse myself from this one.
Okay.
Thanks,
Brent.
Go away, Brant. Just kidding.
Say, Amy, your mic's on.
And I'm here too, Rosemary, from the West Side Market, in case there are questions specifically directed to me, but Amy's going to lead the presentation.
All
Sorry,
right.
I missed you.
Thanks, everybody. That's fine. So I'm Amy Haney with DLR Group. I'm a project manager with DLR Group. We are taking a look at the West Side Market addition and renovation. We are partnered with another architecture firm, Robert P. Madison International, and we are working with Daru Landscape Architects. Rosemary already introduced herself a little bit here, but I'm also joined by Jacob Stolfus from DLR Group. He's here to help me support and fill in the gaps and answer some questions related to architecture. And I also think Chris Panicki from PMC, who is an owner's rep, is also on the call.
I think Chris had to jump off. Amy.
Oh, did he have to jump? Okay. We'll fill Chris in here. But wanted to get before this committee now to give you kind of more of a scope and conceptual overview of the planned addition and renovation to the West Side Market. This is actually just the next step in a multi-phase project and look at renovating the West Side Market. I will actually turn it over to Rosemary briefly to give kind of an overview of the ownership structure and management structure and how we got to this phase. I think she is a little more well-suited to introduce the planning process and the ownership structure for the project. So Rosemary, briefly, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Thanks for having us today, everyone. So I think probably some of you have been following along, but for those who haven't been following along as closely, you know, the West Side Market has been a city-owned building for the last 112 years since it was built. In April 2024, Cleveland Public Market Corporation, a newly formed nonprofit, took over day-to-day management of the market, both to do daily operations and also specifically to manage the implementation of the master plan that was put together by the city and community stakeholders. So I just want to emphasize again that this plan was developed while the market was under city control, and the elements that you are going to see were proposed by, you know, the mayor's office and the city itself. So I just, you know, I think that's important to remember that this plan is being implemented by CPMC, but was developed in preparation for the handoff to a nonprofit. And let me, I guess, speak really broadly to the goals. So there's a number of goals here. One is to address deferred maintenance and infrastructure challenges to ensure that the market is operating in the 21st century. The second is to address the customer experience, again, ensuring that the West Side Market is a competitive place for people to shop and for visitors to visit. And three, ensure that we are providing a strong space for small businesses to operate. And I guess the fourth piece is also to ensure that the market is a space where we are participating in the regional food scene and also through the master plan creating a sustainable operating model. And so many of these elements that you're seeing are very critical to ensuring that the market can become a sustainable operation. It currently loses $1 million a year, and that doesn't include capital renovations. That's just daily operating costs.
Thank you. So with that kind of programmatic and background context, let's go into our physical context. Next page. So hopefully we all know the West Side Market is located at the corner of West 25th and Lorraine. Want to just take a second to look at this and draw your eyes to the kind of lower rooftop on the market hall. We're going to talk a little bit just briefly about what is going on that roof. There are currently some mechanical units that are sitting mostly on the north side. And anything new that is going on that roof is going to be at or below the level of those existing mechanical units there. The market is made up of the market hall and then a kind of service alley in between that is private property. It is not a public alley. And then the arcades that are to the north and to the east, which have historically been used as the produce arcades. You can go to the next slide. There's just an overall view to orient yourselves. We'll be talking about the market hall, the arcades, and then just to the north of the north arcade in this photo, there is a parking lot that serves the market hall. It is a city-owned lot that the market is leasing currently or will be leasing, but it is considered kind of the parking lot that feeds the West Side Market. The parking lot to the east as well is serving the West Side Market. We are not proposing any changes to the east parking lot or the sidewalks to the north or the east of the arcades. You can go to the next slide. So just to have these here for reference, the West Side Market Market Hall building is, we're not proposing any changes to this. We're restoring, cleaning, patching and replacing all of the masonry here. We are planning on replacing the doors and windows back to the kind of historic profiles. But what we're looking at right now are very close to the historic profiles. I think this renovation was done in 2000 or 2004 with the replacing of these windows. The replacements will be very similar to this, I think just a little bit skinnier. The bottom left here, you can see the view from Lorraine looking into the loading dock. We will be patching and repairing the loading dock and the canopy, but it will look as it is now. Next page. This is a current view of the arcades in the alley that we will be affecting. So on the top left, this is a view of the arcade from the, I think this is the, can't tell if that's the loading dock alley or the north alley. But in any case, the arcade, the central roof is the historic arcade. What we're looking at here with the garage doors are what we're calling the shed edition. That was added in 2004, so it is not an historic structure, but we are planning to replace the garage doors there with something more modern. But the reason that I bring up that is not a historic structure is that this project will be a historic tax credit project. So everything that you are about to see as a proposal has been put in front of the National Park Service. We are not going for the state historic tax credits, but we are working with the State Historic Tax Credit Board and the people there. They, along with the National Park Service representatives, have been out to the site twice to walk through with us, so they are aware of these proposals and are generally supportive, although they have not come back with any official recommendations since we just put in our application about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. You can go to the next slide. So taking a look here on what the scope of the renovation and addition is, we'll take a look at the market hall first. In the market hall, the main roof is to remain. We're proposing new windows and doors, and then some new replacement roof on the lower roofs that we talked about in the context photo, with some new mechanical equipment to be put there at the elevation that is at or lower what is there now. The North Arcade is that the program inside it will be changing. It's currently used as the produce vendor stalls. We are proposing a new kind of program for that, which is a food hall type vendors. So some of these vendors will have a hood with a food prep area. There will be two bar vendors here, and then seating on the inside. That will be receiving new storefronts and new garage doors, and then also new man doors, but that will be in the same kind of West Side Market green and profiles to generally match the existing garage doors that are there. The East Arcade will then become the produce vendor stalls. Those new windows will be matching the garage doors on the North Arcade, but we are proposing those to be swing doors to service the produce arcades instead of the overhead garage doors. And then the storefronts in there will match the existing. And then the only new construction that we are proposing are what we're calling the connectors. So those are in the green there. We have the west connector, which is just a pass-through that is covered with a roof. And then the east connector is a connection between the arcade and the market hall. But then that will also house stairs to get down into a basement level that is actually underneath the alley at that location. And then a new service elevator that will service the North Arcade and the produce vendors to get out into that service alley and then to get their product into their vendor stalls. Go to the next page. So this is a closer look at the layout of where the connector pieces will be. You can see the East Arcade has just a set of swing doors that get you into this new courtyard that is created in between the two connectors. The North Arcade is starting to show where those vendor stalls are located and where seating will be. Where the seating will be is where the overhead garage doors will be opening into the alley and the courtyard. And then in your East Arcade is the layout of the East connector is the layout of the elevator, stairs, and then kind of the back of house area for those. You can go to the next page. So here's our initial thoughts of the layout of the courtyard. Really the priority here for the courtyard is to be fully flexible. We were just proposing some pavers here in a gray neutral tone. The masonry on the market and the arcades is very yellowy and orange, and we didn't want to be clashing with that. So we're proposing a very neutral gray for the pavement of the courtyard here. And then we're calling it the interior and exterior courtyard. The exterior does open out onto the sidewalk along 25th. And then the interior is just between those connectors. We have played around with possibly putting landscaping into the courtyard. We haven't landed anywhere as a final design decision. However, there is the desire from CPMC to use this very flexibly, possibly having events in here that could be a wedding ceremony, could be a corporate event with like happy hour. We could have live music and with a small stage set up. So if we put anything here that is permanent, that really limits the amount of people and the type of setup that could occur here. So for now, we are proposing movable planters that could be at different heights and sizes, that could be kind of moved to the edges or the middle, depending on what is happening in the courtyard at that time. You can see that there is some overhead, like string lighting proposed for the space. That would not be connected to the historic building in any way. We would be doing that by poles. And then at the other end, at the arcade, we would be connecting that to the kind of shed roof that is on the 2004 edition. And all furniture in the interior courtyard would be movable, and we have not picked it out yet. And then on the exterior, when we do pick it, we probably will be fixing that in a location so that it doesn't move away. You can go to the next slide. The other landscaping that we are proposing here is to block off the loading dock area a little bit. Currently, there are people probably parking on the sidewalk where they shouldn't be parking. So that tree screen is proposed there from the corner of the market hall on the east side with some screen trees, and then a 4-foot metal picket fence to discourage people from cutting through that area on foot and knocking down the trees. And then on the ornamental grass screen, we are proposing just a little bit of screening from that service area from the produce vendors on that side, and to really discourage people from walking through the loading dock area. And then on the lower left, you can see the pavers that we are looking at for the courtyard. You can go to the next page. So here's just the elevations of the market. You can see the historic profiles of the windows that will be going in place. You can go to the next. Again, just to review, historic profiles in place of the existing windows. Next page. So this is showing the proposed windows and storefronts and garage doors for the East Arcade and North Arcade. The East Arcade, you can see probably not in the screen, but the swing door locations. And then on the North Arcade, you can see the where the connectors are coming in, and then the garage door locations. We are proposing one of the garage doors on the courtyard side to land on a bar, so that bar could be interior and exterior facing. And then there is another one on the north side of the arcade that you can see there on the kind of the left end, to have that same condition apply there. You can go to the next page. So this is looking at our new proposed generator and chiller yard location. So that is in that parking lot that is just north of the North Arcade on the other side of the alley, with this addition of new air conditioning, heating, and then power backup for the market. There's a lot of new equipment that needs to be located somewhere. So we are proposing to put it in that parking lot, and then screening it as much as we can. So we've worked with our engineers to see how open that could be, and we've just got that 75% open screen that it needs to be at that one location that we're marking there that is north. So anything that is facing the arcades can be a solid screen, and we are hoping that we can get some nice mural design proposed for there and artwork, so that you're not just kind of looking at a blank wall. And the same would apply to anywhere else besides that 175% open that we have to have.
Amy, I just want to jump in and add, this is the site of the current generator and also other equipment already at the market. So that's also why this area was selected, as it already is the current location of this type of equipment on site.
Thank you. Can go to the next page. So this is the view of the new courtyard entrance or alley from West 25th. This is the only kind of new construction that we're looking at, and this is the connector piece. So the thought here and the strategy here is to pull any kind of structure away from the arcade and away from the market. So right next to the doors is where we're proposing our only structure, and those posts are cantilevering the roof and soffit off to meet the arcades and to meet the market hall. We still have to detail how the glass is getting, it is kind of connected to the market hall and the arcade. We do have a few options. We could saw cut into the masonry there and epoxy it in, or we could potentially frame it out around it, or just have a kind of acrylic seal there. But the thought here is to be very minimal and very transparent, and just kind of make the new addition look much different, but also have a light touch to the existing architecture here. And you can go to the next page. This is the interior courtyard view. Like I said previously, we haven't chosen any specific planters or furniture here, but you can see the proposed garage doors, that bar that occurs in the interior courtyard, the string lighting, and then the same elevation here for the east connector, which houses the elevator and stair. But it has the same profile and same elevation as the one that is on the east side. You can go to the next page. This is the example of the garage door that we are including. Jacob, you might be able to chime in, but I think the one that we're looking at is closest to the top left. How it pivots up, it does not roll up. So there will be kind of an awning there.
Yeah, as and even Philip had mentioned these earlier in a previous proposal that the Renlita doors, they are able to flip up in such a way that it's not a roll up door, so it's not creating that track condition in the overhead. So all three of these pictures are representative of the Renlita float away door that we're proposing.
You can go to the next page. This is the storefront system that we are looking at for the fixed portions of the arcades, which would match the profiles of that Renlita door. And then next page. Which is an example of the architectural windows that we are looking at for the market hall replacements. Just happen to have a green that is pretty close to the west side market green in the bottom left. I think that is the last page.
And with the windows, I'll also add in that we've been working thus far with Jameson Ricca locally that would be using these Graham extrusions. So we've gone through and looked at the historic documents from the 1912 actual construction documents to try and find extrusions profiles that most closely match the original. So the biggest difference between the windows as they currently exist on the market, because they do have a pretty close representation of the original configuration, the biggest difference is that there'd be a lot more depth. So a little more ornamentation to the window itself and a lot more depth to those windows with the new windows that will be going in.
That's all we have for today. So looking forward to feedback and comments.
Thank you for presenting. Let's open it up to the committee. So
I can go first.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
I just have two questions, comments. The first is the doors that will enter into the courtyard. Will those always be closed?
I think
No.
operationally you can weigh in. Yeah. Thanks, Rosemary.
No, that's part of the purpose of keeping them as garage doors, not as storefront systems, is so that they can open because there'll be seating integrated into the interior of the market. The other, I guess, important piece of this is working with SHPO and others. The existing garage doors are not historic, nor are they part of the historic period of significance. They were added on in the year 2000. So from that perspective, there's not any historic reason to keep them exactly as they are. But yes, so all of these would be operable because there's seating on the inside of here. So one of the big pieces of the North Arcade is to integrate seating, which was the #1 customer request at the market, is people need places to sit. So we have strategically put seating where the courtyard opens up and are going to put the new vendor stalls in areas where we would be less likely to want the garage doors. So some of them will be operable, but some of them will just look like garage doors and be storefront systems. Correct, Amy?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And then the doors on 25th, though.
So you're talking about in the connector pieces?
Mm-hmm. There.
I think, yeah, I think those would be closed but unlocked when the courtyard is open or when the market is open.
I think it would just depend again on the weather. They might be propped open to be able to make the courtyard feel open all the way through.
I guess my preference is because it is a courtyard, ideally you wouldn't have doors there, but I also understand that you need to protect the furniture and the space. So if there was a door option that when the market was operating, that the doors it could feel more open air, I think that would be ideal.
Yeah, so Whitney, I think the plan is in good weather for the doors to be open. One of the biggest challenges in the market is controlling airflow. And a big piece of putting these connectors in is so that in the winter and things like that, it's already incredibly difficult to heat and cool the market. And so this is kind of important for poor weather to be able to close these and keep them closed, not permanently. But the idea is that in nice weather, they would be open and people could pass through, but.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe even just having like the doors there, even if they're just propped open, I think still feels a little bit like a barrier. So, obviously with the garage door, the door basically disappears, from a pedestrian perspective. And so that's what is lovely about that rather than like a door that you would prop open. So, but I understand the heating and cooling issues. So just something to explore, just because I think with it being close to the street would add to the communal aspect to it. If the door felt a little bit less present. And then my other comment was about the furniture, which I know you haven't chosen yet, but just something I think to explore. I like that you're not overcomplicating it with the furniture, and it sounds like you want it to be movable. I think communal tables would actually be a really nice touch there. You'd get more seating, and I think you'd probably these are probably high turnover meals often. And so then you'd kind of have that ability to get people to come in, maybe even sit with people, meet with people, and then leave quickly as needed. And so I don't know if that would be a challenge if you want to be able to remove the tables for special events, but I think it's important to have furniture that prioritizes the primary use rather than for those special things. So, and I just, again, adding to the communal aspect of the market, I think those larger tables would be kind of a fun thing to do for people, something I've done when I've traveled, been able to sit at a large table and meet others. And so yeah, those were really just my 2 comments, questions. So, but I mean, it's lovely. And I know everyone in the city is excited to see the attention given to the market finally. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go next. sorry, I lost connection for a minute there, but I am back. Um, I echo Whitney's concern about the connectors feeling like barriers or presenting as barriers, while also balancing like what I know to be a really, really difficult mechanical situation, just historically at the market. I think my kind of like concern or reaction to the plan as presented is, or the, you know, the concept as presented is, that the connectors could also be limiting inherently to the use of the space. And I'm fresh off of a visit to Findlay Market in Cincinnati, and I just can't help but really appreciate, when I'm at other historic markets such as that one, the really amazing like synergy that happens in these kind of alley spaces between different portions of markets. And I think that's just, I kind of bristle at it almost, at this, because it does feel like a barrier to me. And I'm curious, like what, understanding of course like the mechanical and kind of those kind of considerations, but curious like what the design team's thoughts are on that take, and or you know, what maybe what precedents you did look at in terms of programming and fluidity and connectivity to the neighborhood, which are so important to this market, both to the local users, but also as just like an absolute icon for visitors and for drawing in people from all over the city. So that's, I don't know if there's like a design suggestion layered in there somewhere, but that's kind of just my reaction initially, beyond broadly.
Amy, I don't know if you have anything specific, but I just will speak to one of the purposes of the connectors. Again, it's speaking to the mechanical systems, but it also is an accessibility issue. So there's not a way to get from the produce arcade to the market hall without going outside. And again, from the just thinking about weather from November 1st through May 1st in Cleveland, I think realistically, it poses a major challenge for our elderly folks, for our folks with strollers, things like that. Even if we make it at exact grade, you know, it still requires them to go through multiple doors, have to hold things open. And so, because we wouldn't be able to prop those doors open in the winter time, you know, to the arcade and to the market. So it also is, you know, I think there's a delicate balance between engaging with the community, but also making sure that the market is accessible and serving visitors. And the connector, I think, is an important piece of creating that accessibility for people, and a huge reason why we're putting it in.
And I could jump in and a little bit as well, just to say that we do recognize these connectors as one of the most, well, for this project especially, the most difficult design piece of the project, because it does serve so many functions, as Rosemary's alluding to, between its function basically as a vestibule into the main market hall, to provide that pathway from the arcades into the market hall, recognizing that a lot of patrons actually are coming from the parking lot. We'd like to believe that the project will help spur more engagement from the street side, which obviously in that condition, we want to make sure that this area that's functioning as a vestibule is also functioning as a pass-through to go down that alley and then into what is going to be the future courtyard. It's navigating between several different elevation changes in order to have that accessibility into the market. If you recognize now that there's a sidewalk in that alley, there's the asphalt in the alley. That alley is used by a lot of service vehicles coming in and out. So there is that synergy and that activity that happens in the alley, but it's also a lot of activity that's intermingled with vehicles that you're having to sort of work your way around. And so by limiting that sort of access to the alley for that service aspect, and really dedicating it to the pedestrian, hopefully the addition of these doors that will be able to open up from the seating in the arcade will allow for a free flow into that courtyard. But obviously, as Whitney has pointed out, we also want to make sure that that flow comes off of the street as well. So yeah, it's a really difficult design problem to solve. We're going to try and minimize the visibility of those doors as much as possible and make the glass as clear as possible, so that right here you're looking at a rendering that's showing the reflectivity off of that glass that depending on the day may or may not actually be viewed like that. So hopefully the transparency of the glazing and the minimizing of the structure and trying to get as thin a profile on the doors as possible will help that transparency of people being able to see into the courtyard and be drawn to it.
I do want to point out too that there are two kind of courtyards. The interior one, which is about 25 by 100, and then what we're looking at here is 25 by 50. So it is about half the size of the one on the inside, and that will always be there. So like the thought is that it's the same furniture and it's the same, and there are garage doors that are opening from the arcade onto the courtyard that's on 25th. So the hope is that you're kind of drawn into it here and see through into the courtyard. So even if there is a private event happening on the interior, that one on 25th would still be accessible by the community and have the same kind of facilities and furniture there as well at all times.
Well, to that end, is there a reason that you need to have two connectors? Could the eastern connector serve the purpose that needs to happen for all the other reasons and not and potentially eliminate the western?
The entrance into the one on the west side is the kind of new accessible entrance, and I think that's a little far to go to the east side to make up that kind of difference. So from West 25th, you would go into those connector doors and then either into the market or to the arcade. And then otherwise, there is the kind of desire to have that courtyard available for the private events and to be kind of to have different security options. So instead of putting like a gate up and to make that up in another way, that is the reason for the Western. And Rosemary, I don't know if there were other considerations in the master plan that I didn't mention that you might want to cover.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a combination of one, just having that single connector. The idea is to encourage flow throughout the market. So again, if you come from the parking lot and you shop your way down the North Arcade and you get to 25th, then the only cut through point, having only one cut through point between the arcades that's interior in the winter is just not really practical. And I think the other reason is, the courtyard is an important piece of both community programming, and we see a lot of community programming happening there, but it's also an important revenue generating stream for us. And again, a lot of these sort of design decisions were thought through from multiple perspectives of both, how do we create a more accessible market for market goers? How do we ensure that we're creating sustainable operations from a security perspective? Then we would have to be looking at like moving all of the seating in all of the time if we can't lock those doors. I mean, there's just a lot of, I think, considerations that keeping that courtyard with no connector at the front poses challenges, but it also, again, the vehicular access, all of those things, this very clearly makes the courtyard a place for people. There's not service vehicles able to enter in there, even if they want to, or go up over a curb or anything from the front. And so I think that's a pretty important element as well.
I I just wanted to kind of echo what Whitney was mentioning about furniture. And Nia mentioned the Finley Market and looking at photos and seeing all sorts of colorful benches, red benches, and just things like that. Um, I keep looking, I understand why you went with gray palette for the courtyard and for both the courtyards and for the doors and everything on there. You don't want to clash with the existing building, but it feels like there should be a little bit more opportunity to look into different paving patterns. I know there's the park across the street that kind of has the diagonal paving pattern and then the horizontal opposing, and so that's doing something a little bit more um, exciting. I think this kind of looks a little bit drab at the moment, and I think there might be maybe it's two different paver colors. You have the orange from the buildings, orange yellowish from the buildings, the lighter color below, and the green even in the kind of doors and storefront, and that's a tough combination. But I wonder if there's an opportunity to do some different pavement patterns and do some different colors in there and kind of um, liven it up a little bit, just at least from the rendering point of view. And then I am excited that you talked about that mural and the signage and stuff like that on the other side. I would hope that there's spaces to bring that in here, and also with the furniture as well. Like that can be, another opportunity to add color. And I think, I know this space is probably like the park across the street has like trees. I know this space is probably overshadowed by, oh gosh, isn't the West Side Market's to the south of this space? So, there's probably not an option for any other green besides what's on the store, like the garage doors and storefront and the stuff in the existing building. But yeah, color is probably okay in some instances, and there's probably a format that doesn't clash with the buildings. That's all I got.
Thanks, Philip.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question pertaining to keeping those doors open? Like we're seeing from this rendering angle, just typical kind of storefront door styles. Did you consider a different type of door mechanism, like a bifolding or something that could be truly, because even if they're open, then we're going to be dealing with the door leaves creating fins.
So
Would you?
no, what we're looking at here, I think, Dan, if you could go to the plan, I think it's before this. Not these are garage doors that were open. We're just showing them being fixed in that plan.
So the connector
Before.
doors would be
Before. So those garage doors next to the bar are their garage doors opening, and then the connector pieces would open out, so they wouldn't be out from the courtyard.
yes.
Mhm.
I'm asking about the connector piece. I am the storefront and garage door systems. Those look great to me. It's the connector piece that I'm asking about, because when they're in the open mechanism, they would be creating fins, like as shown.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that would help the openness. Is it possible, or did you consider bifolds or some sort of system that would allow for like it to be a clear breezeway between, or is it possible?
We could take a look at that.
We also want to make sure we're careful with egress because that courtyard is essentially a room. And so we're looking at an occupant load of upwards of 100, 150 people. If you really had a crowded event in there, standing room only. So we want to make sure that our egress capacities and our sort of emergency egress mechanisms are in place. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and could look at some of the alternatives to be able to meet various conditions.
Yeah, I don't mean to be I mean, so harsh on the connector, but I really do. I think it's very self-limiting. And also appreciating obviously all the other factors you guys have considered that we're not privy to. But that is my gut reaction to it at the moment. Everything else that you guys have presented, I think, makes a ton of sense. I'd be really excited about the garage doors. I just I'm curious if there could be other solutions that would solve these problems without boxing in literally this space. Is there anyone else still on the call that would like to chime in from the committee?
Can I just make sure that what I'm saying is clear, because I really do respect the function and the necessity of the connectors, and I've been in this space many times whenever it's cold, and there's a lot of respect to especially longtime vendors who need some essentially quality of life improvements, and so I think it's great that those are being made, and I echo obviously what Nia is saying about the doors feeling like such a barrier. Even if these are the door choices, kind of, you know, the context that they're in, I mean, there could be even a more beautiful barrier. I think that option exists. And so, you know, we just kind of have some gray lines, some gray doors with some glass, and with such a extensive facelift, I think even if these door designs are what we need to go with, I do just still think that there can be beautiful doors if or, you know, what's around the doors or something. And so I think it can be both. So I hope that that's clear and not so ambiguous, but yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think for all of us, it might be our largest sticking point of how this can feel really like part of the community.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I think just one other perspective is I think the National Park Service has really pushed to have as little, rather than to keep it as simple and Amy, you might say it better, but like not contrasting, but essentially they don't want you to mimic the historic nature or anything like that. They want you to keep it simple and make it clear that this is not part of the historic building. So I don't know. I think that's like an Amy and Jacob question on like how do we meet their desire for simplicity, but recognize that the importance of it feeling welcoming.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it is totally, it should be deferent to the existing architecture, and it does do that. And I understand that conflict of what Whitney's saying, which I think she stated really well. Maybe it's just like there is still, I'm also acknowledging this is a conceptual design, so that you guys clearly have, you know, it's not fully fleshed out, and that's fine. I think it's more just that the feeling that this building is so iconic, and every update we make to it, as you all know, is so precious and means so much, that if this is then going to become a primary entrance for majority of users, we also want to make it feel like, I want the design and the courtyard and the space to feel as worthy of this iconic visit and this iconic building. And I think it just is still feeling a little, I think, as Phil said, drab or lackluster in this iteration.
Understand the comments. Thank you.
And I want to point out we did get some emails. We had to lose a few committee members just based on how long the meeting went. So I think we've heard from all the committee members who are still here.
Dan, but quickly before you go, I have a hard stop at 2 for a doctor's appointment. So if I cannot adjourn the meeting, just be aware. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I mean, Amy, Rosemary, do you guys feel like you got enough feedback? I think everybody's chimed in who's here, I guess is what I was saying. So
yeah, I think so.
I'm comfortable with the feedback.
All right, then I think you're safe to adjourn then.
Great. So we'll call today's what's the date? October 17th, Ohio City Historic District Review Committee. I think I got it all in there. Today's meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.